The diplomatic quarters of the Crithian warship Bloodclaw had never been designed with comfort in mind. They were functional, sterile, and maintained at a temperature that most species found unbearable. Yet somehow Mira had managed to make the small corner of her assigned chamber feel almost warm. Commander Rauk stood frozen in the doorway, his four eyes widening in disbelief at the scene before him. His hand hovered over his plasma sidearm, not in threat, but in sheer confusion about whether he'd need it. There, in a pile of soft fabrics the human had insisted on bringing aboard, lay Mira. The human ambassador was fast asleep, her chest rising and falling in that peculiar slow rhythm her species exhibited during rest. But that wasn't what made Rauk's blood run cold. Curled protectively around her were his three offspring, Kessa, Drax, and little Vora, the future of his bloodline. The most precious cubs in his clan were nestled against the soft human like she was their broodmother. Their sharp talons, each capable of tearing through reinforced steel, rested gently against her fabric coverings, their massive heads, already showing the bone ridges that would make them formidable warriors, were tucked under her arms and against her shoulder. A data pad lay loosely in Mira's hand, its screen still glowing with text. An Earth storybook, Rauk realized. She'd been reading to them. By the ancient hunts, Rauk breathed, his translator barely catching the whispered words. He'd left the cubs in the recreation chamber for barely 2 standard hours. They were supposed to be practicing their combat forms with the training drones. Instead, they'd apparently escaped again and found their way to the humans' quarters. Again. This was the 5th time this week. Rauk had been warned about humans when the Galactic Council had insisted on sending an ambassador to facilitate the Alliance negotiations. Dangerous, they'd called them. Death Worlders, the Arxians had hissed. Predators who evolved from pack hunters. What they hadn't mentioned was how utterly bizarre humans could be. Mira had arrived 3 planetary rotations ago, stepping off the diplomatic shuttle with nothing but a containment case of personal items, and that strange human smile that showed far too many teeth. The crew had kept their distance, as was proper when dealing with an apex species from a Class 12 death world. But then the cubs had found her. It started innocently enough. Vora, the youngest and most curious, had wandered into the humans' quarters, while Mira was organizing her belongings. Rauk had nearly torn through the ship's hull when he discovered his daughter was missing, only to find her sitting peacefully while Mira braided decorative cords into the cub's neck fur. She's beautiful, Mira had said simply, as if she hadn't been sitting within biting distance of a predator cub who could easily crush her fragile human bones. Then Kessa and Drax had followed. And somehow, impossibly, the human had begun reading to them Earth stories, tales of creatures called wolves and lions and bears, predators from humanity's own homeworld. Stories of brave heroes and magnificent beasts, of loyalty and courage and pack bonds that transcended species. The cubs were entranced. Rauk took a careful step into the room, his clawed feet silent on the metal floor. He needed to extract his offspring before Drax's ear twitched. The middle cub's eyes opened slowly, those triple-lidded orbs focusing on his father with drowsy awareness. Rauk froze, expecting his son to leap up to disturb the human, to cause chaos as cubs always did. Instead, Drax made a low, rumbling sound, the purr of contentment, and deliberately placed one massive paw over Mira's hand. A protective gesture. A claim. She is ours, the gesture said. She is pack. Rauk felt something tighten in his chest. His cubs had just claimed a human as family. In Crithian culture, such a claim was sacred. It meant his offspring would defend this soft, fragile being with their lives. It meant she was under the protection of Clan Rauk, one of the most feared warrior lineages in the Empire. It meant everything had just become infinitely more complicated. Commander? A voice crackled through his comm link. We're receiving another complaint from the Arxian delegation. They're demanding the human be confined to... Denied. Rauk growled softly, cutting off his subordinate. The human is under clan protection, effective immediately. Anyone who threatens her answers to me personally. There was a long pause. Understood, Commander. Rauk deactivated the comm and moved closer, studying the bizarre scene. Mira's face was peaceful in sleep, one hand still resting on the data pad, the other buried in Kessa's thick fur. His daughter, his fierce, proud daughter who'd once bitten a diplomat who'd dared touch her, was allowing a human to touch her freely. Bora stirred, making a small chirping sound, and Mira's hand automatically moved to stroke the cub's head even in sleep. The maternal gesture was so natural, so instinctive, that Rauk felt his warrior's heart soften despite himself. Humans, he was learning, were not like other species. They didn't see his cubs as weapons in training or political assets to be managed. They saw children, young ones who needed stories and gentleness and someone to read to them before sleep. The galaxy called humans dangerous. The Council called them Deathworlders. The Crithian Empire had called them potential threats. But Rauk, watching this soft human sleep peacefully in a pile of predator cubs who would die to protect her, realized the truth was far more terrifying. Humans didn't conquer through strength alone. They conquered through something far more insidious. They made you love them. They made you family, and there was no defense against that. Rauk carefully retrieved a thermal blanket from the storage compartment and draped it over the sleeping pile. His cubs didn't stir, too content in their new pack formation. "Sleep well, Ambassador," he murmured, his translator barely processing the words. "Your pack will guard you." As he left the chamber and sealed the door, Rauk made a mental note to inform the Galactic Council that the alliance negotiations had just become far more favorable to humanity. After all, one didn't negotiate harshly with family, and his cubs had made their choice clear.